There's a personality type trending across social media right now that claims to be one of the rarest in the world. People say they can feel what you're hiding before you say a word. They call themselves Heyoka Empaths. But most of what's said about them online is either exaggerated, misunderstood, or simply wrong. Today we're separating the myth from the psychology. The word Heyoka comes from the Lakota people, an indigenous nation of the Great Plains. In their tradition, a Heyoka was a sacred contrarian, someone who taught through opposites, who used humor and reversal to reveal truths others were too afraid to face. It was never a personality label. It was a spiritual role, earned through vision and community recognition, not something you diagnose yourself with from a quiz online. Decades later, Western wellness culture borrowed the word and merged it with the modern concept of the empath, someone highly attuned to other people's emotions. That's where today's version of the Heyoka Empath was born. Before we get to the Heyoka part, let's ground the empath part in actual psychology. There's no formal diagnosis called empath in clinical psychology. What research does support is a trait called high sensory processing sensitivity, often shortened to HSP, identified by psychologist Elaine Aron in the 1990s. People high in this trait process sensory and emotional information more deeply than average. They pick up on subtle cues, get overwhelmed in stimulating environments, and often feel other people's emotions almost as if they were their own. This is measurable, replicated in research, and estimated to apply to roughly 15 to 20% of the population. So when people describe empath traits, they're often describing a real studied phenomenon, just under a different name. So what separates a Heyoka empath from a regular empath according to the people who use the term? 3 traits come up again and again. First, they act as a mirror. Being around a Heyoka empath tends to surface people's suppressed emotions. You might feel unexpectedly exposed or emotional without knowing why. Second, they absorb emotional energy almost physically, sometimes reporting fatigue or physical discomfort after being around distress. Third, they use humor and unpredictability as a tool, deflecting heaviness with a joke, or approaching serious situations sideways instead of head-on. Supporters describe this as a kind of emotional shock therapy, uncomfortable in the moment, but ultimately revealing. If you're wondering whether this describes you, here are the signs most commonly listed. You often know how someone feels before they tell you. You feel drained after emotionally intense conversations, even ones that weren't about you. People often say things to you they've never told anyone else. You use humor to diffuse tense situations, sometimes at moments others find inappropriate. And you feel a strong pull toward honesty, even when a comfortable lie would be easier. None of these traits are exotic on their own, but the combination is what people online rally around. It's worth comparing this to other terms floating around the same space. A highly sensitive person, as we covered, is about depth of processing, not necessarily confrontation or humor. An emotional sponge empath typically absorbs feelings passively, without the mirror and provoke dynamic. A dark empath, a separate and more concerning concept, combines emotional insight with narcissistic or manipulative traits, using understanding of others to exploit rather than help. The Heyoka empath sits in its own space, high sensitivity plus an active, sometimes disruptive role in surfacing truth. What's less discussed online is how isolating this can be. If people consistently feel exposed or unsettled around you, relationships can become complicated. Many who identify with this label report feeling misunderstood, pushed away, or accused of being too much, even when their intent was never to hurt anyone. This is an important, often skipped part of the conversation. Whatever you call it, high sensitivity combined with bluntness is a real social burden, not just a gift. So is the Heyoka empath a rare spiritual gift, or a repackaged psychological trait with a compelling story attached? The honest answer is probably both, depending on how you look at it. The underlying sensitivity is real and measurable. The Heyoka framing, mirror, provocateur, truth teller, is a cultural narrative layered on top, not a scientific classification. That doesn't make it meaningless. Stories and labels help people understand themselves, even when they aren't formal diagnoses. But it's worth knowing where the psychology ends and the mythology begins. Ultimately, that might be the real reason this label has spread so fast. It gives language to an experience a lot of sensitive, blunt, emotionally attuned people have always had, but never had a name for. Recognizing yourself in a description, even an imperfect one, can feel like relief. If several of these signs sounded familiar, you're not alone, and you're not broken. In the next video, we'll go deeper into how to protect your energy if you relate to this pattern, without shutting people out. Let me know in the comments which trait hit closest to home and subscribe if you want more videos like this.